Good. Morning. I'm Ian Whitney, lead developer with ASR Custom Solutions. Colin mentioned at the start that student degree progress has existed for a long time. I'm coming into a project that existed for several years before I got here in a couple different forms. Initially working a lot around student athletes, but it's expanded, and it's at the point now where we're getting out of it just being an ASR thing and being at least Twin Cities, if not system-wide thing. I'm going to go through that and what student degree progress offers you as a service, but to get there, first I need to tell you a story. A story follows a nice structure. You get a quest. You think you're going to win, then you think you're going to fail, then there's a dramatic turnaround and an eventual triumph. So let's start off with the quest. You get this request to generate this report. What percentage of fall 2016 admits are on track to graduate in 2020? You know that this quest is important because the legislature is demanding that we hit a certain percentage. You also know that the regents have demanded that we hit a certain percentage. So this is just some fly-by-night thing. What you may not know at this point is that you have started a dangerous journey, and you have agreed to take a small gold ring to Mount Doom. You start where pretty much everything starts at the university. You start with PeopleSoft. It is the source of truth for nearly everything. You figure that there's either a data table somewhere in PeopleSoft or in the data warehouse that's going to give you what you want. Worst case, right, you can look at student enrollment data and admit data. So you think of your query parameters. It seems pretty straightforward. You're going to find everyone who's admitted in 2016. You're going to calculate the number of credits they've taken. If they have more than 60, then they're probably on track because 120 credits gets you a degree, right? It gets better, trust me. There's so many good things in here. You're going to love it. So you write that query. You're ready to rock and roll. At this point, you hit your first setback. Well, let's not even get into that one. That's a whole other problem. From that query, how do you know that the credits the student has taken actually apply to their degree? What if of their 60 credits, they have 10 credits in underwater basket weaving? Right. So you refine your criteria, and you say, OK, well, assuming you know what department they're kind of pursuing a degree in, let's say that we just limit it down to the courses that they've taken within that department. So if we have like a theoretical student that's pursuing a history degree and they take courses in the history department and they have more than 60, thumbs up. I see some shaking heads. I feel other people have maybe done this quest in the past. Setback 2.
There's a lot of veterans here.
I know, but what I found with student degree progress as a service is that if you don't understand the pitfalls, and the many of them, then the service itself doesn't seem all that exciting. So I've found that it helps a lot to kind of walk through all the pain. So what if they take lib-ed courses? You kind of have to do that, right? They're most likely not going to take them within the department. I checked. There is only one history course department or history department course that satisfies that logic and reasoning requirement, for example. So you refine again, calculate their credits, limiting to those in the department or courses that satisfy a lib-ed requirement. More than 60, you're looking great. Hey, it's another setback. It's the same setback. Underwater basket weaving may not be a degree applicable for someone who's doing a history of African nation states source of degree, but it could be totally degree applicable for someone who's doing history of arts and crafts. And you have no way of knowing the difference. You just can't do it in PeopleSoft. Trying to answer this question in PeopleSoft is Sisyphean. Every attempt to improve your query is only going to result in new questions, some of which have already been mentioned by you. We didn't even talk about the possibility of transfer credits. Those aren't in PeopleSoft. Exceptions to degree requirements, not in PeopleSoft. The data is just not there. And trying to find it in PeopleSoft will eventually crush you. You think of another system. You've heard of PCAS. You know that PCAS is the source of truth for what rules a degree has to follow, the requirements of that degree. So you decide that, hey, maybe I can use this. You are immediately set back. You don't even get very far. You are using the wrong tool for the job at this point, right? PCAS is at the degree level. It'll tell you what the requirements are of a history degree, but it has nothing in there about students. And there's no way to map that data to students. It's essentially useless for you if you're answering this question. You can go in there and you can see what the 2016 rules are for the history program, but you actually have no way of knowing if a student is following the 2016 rules. Just because of their admit term, it doesn't actually say that they're following a certain version of the degree. You give up on PCAST pretty quick. Step 3, DARS, the APAS. I'll explain a little bit about the terminology I'm using here. DARS is the application. APAS is the report that it generates. And the APAS is where the rubber really meets the road when you're trying to answer this question. It combines PeopleSoft and PCAST data, along with the transfer credits and exception data that I mentioned earlier. And it helpfully classifies all courses as either being degree applicable or not degree applicable. Makes it very easy to see what courses at a student level actually apply to their degree. The APAS at the university is the truth when it comes to determining how close a student is to getting their degree. So you get to work. You're going to identify some students. You're going to query their data. Do they have 60 or more degree applicable credits? Then they are on track. Your immediate setback is this data does not exist. It is an empty set. You cannot query this data because this is not how DARS works. Unlike PeopleSoft, DARS doesn't just have all this data sitting in a table that you can go query. What DARS contains is a set of rules about what the requirements are for a degree, but until you actually go to DARS and run the APAS, either through the web UI or some other mechanism, the data for that student doesn't exist in DARS. It's just not there. So if you want to see data for an individual student or group of students, you have to run their APASs. So, take 2. You decide that you're going to run APASs for all of the students that you're interested in. And then you can query the data, and then you can do your little report. I will detour slightly to say that figuring out how to run APASs for a large number of students can be tricky, but I take it that you're all smart people and that you can figure this out. Setback 6. Every day at 2 a.m., all APASs generated have been deleted. It's done largely for size. An APAS takes up a fair amount of space in a database on the hotel service, and so every day at 2 o'clock they get rid of them all. So if you run that little tool that generates all of your APASs, you have under 24 hours at this point to do all of your research. Be quick. So you decide to fix that problem. You run APASs for all of your students. You then copy all that data to your own database where it won't be deleted, and then you can query your students. You can find out which ones are on track. And that's when you see the data. This is what it looks like if you pull data out of DARS. This is a list of courses for a single student, and it's not all of them. Course list for an individual student ranges between 400 and 1,800 lines of data, rows in the database. Why such a range? Good question. Can anyone tell me why English is in here 8 times and music is in here 9?
Being evaluated for different requirements.
Well, yes, says the person who works with DARS a lot. I will say that DARS data is difficult. Why are there 2 different grade columns? What on earth is a StabX? Which of these actually apply?
That's my favorite column.
It's great. I love StabX. Which of these courses are actually applicable to a student's degree and which aren't? I will say with DARS data,
Multiple rows.
Yeah.
It depends on the degree.
right. And if you want to start digging into which actually apply to a degree or mine interesting data out of DARS, what tends to happen is your query will be right 70-ish% of the time. And the other 30% of the time, your query will say that a student has taken 400 credits, or 0 credits, or -8 credits. I will say another drawback of this data is only good for right now. As soon as the student gets a new grade, enrolls in a new course, changes degrees, all of this is now wrong. Which means that when you have that process that runs all of your APASs, you're going to have to run it every time their data changes. How often does their data change? Daily, basically. A lot more frequently than you think. We see students get transfer credits and exception credits every day of the year. This is the point in your quest when things look grim, all hope looks lost. You think about all the time you spend on this and you just get a headache. But as I promised, there is a dramatic turnaround. a superhero appears, saving your day. Who is the superhero? What is your name? Student degree progress as a service. Like I said, this data is hard. There's no reason for you to duplicate our effort. All the problems and setbacks that we ran into, we've already run into them, and we have a solution. We do the hard work. First off, the data in the student degree progress as a service, which needs a better acronym than SPAS, is already integrated. It integrates DARS and APAS data. It integrates A+ data. It integrates PeopleSoft data. It integrates data from the National Student Clearinghouse. It's relevant. You can query it to find out what degrees are a student pursuing, if they're pursuing more than one. How much progress have they made to each of those degrees? Which courses per degree apply to the degree and which courses don't? Best thing about it, it's up to date. The data in there is refreshed whenever the student changes their enrollment, gets grades, gets credit for a non-UMN course through transfer articulation, or gets an exception to some requirement that they're supposed to satisfy. Or it's also updated if the requirements of the degree change. If they change the history rules, then we update everyone who's in history. And we do that within 5 minutes, usually, of the change happening to us having new data in our data platform. In periods of really high change, that can be a little bit longer. Like when grades post, that means there's a lot of work for us to do, and that lag time's a little bit more. But on most days, it's within 5 minutes. Like I said, we've done all the hard work for you. All you really have to do is query the data. And thankfully, that's really easy too. This query answers the question that you were given at the start of this. This is your quest. If you don't do SQL, I'll explain it. Basically what this says is for new high school students admitted to the Twin Cities in fall 2016, show me how close they are to completing their active majors. And that's it. Now, if you've tried to write queries like this in PeopleSoft, it's probably 10 times as long, and as I already mentioned, incorrect. Right? Pretty great. So I'm assuming you all want to be customers of the student degree progress as a service. We envision 3 kinds of customers. I'm going to talk a little bit about what those customers are and kind of how we see them using the system. There are people who are going to be interested in current data for a single student. There are people who are going to be interested in current data for a lot of students. And there are going to be people who are interested in data over time for a lot of students. Current data for a student, we have them using a web service. This exists now. It is in production. It is authenticated via SHIB. And only one student can see their own data. There are some super users who can see multiple students. But for the most part, it is a student can see their own data. Right? This is all FERPA protected, so we can't just expose this publicly to the world. We'd like to add some application level access for tools like A+, where they are also looking for current data for a single student at a time. An advisor's looking at a student's report. The security model has to change a little bit to support that. The one place that this is being used right now is within the MyU portal. Students can go in and click on the degree progress tab. For undergrads, that used to be basically useless because it showed PeopleSoft milestone data. But now it shows us visualization. And that visualization is built entirely on top of this. Response time on this is under 100 milliseconds or something like that. So you can build real-time applications on top of this. Our second kind of customer, people looking for current data for many students. We expect them to be writing queries against our common data layer in Hotel Prod. Right? Access for this is granted through an ARF. You can do this now. We're working on documentation for this database, but we've tried to make it so that it kind of has a really good set of common terms and human readable things. And we've normalized kind of the different data problems that you will see if you're trying to compare DARS data, which talks about STUNOs and DPROGs, to PeopleSoft data, which talks about MPL IDs and ACID PROGs. Right? Same concept, different names, mashing those things together. The third group is data over time for many students. Mark's a great example for this. That's going to be done through the Enterprise Data Warehouse. Right now, we're already looking at putting daily snapshots of student degree progress data into the Enterprise Data Warehouse. And you're going to be able to see data change over time. Right now, the Student Degree Progress Platform only offers the most recent data for a student. EDW is going to be where you go to see data over many months. You want to see what students are 50% now and where they were 6 months ago, that's going to be where you go. So that's kind of a sneak preview of what's coming up in the service and what we're already offering. We'll talk about some more things we've got coming. Mike Brown just joined us as a BA, and he's putting together a user group and a Student Degree Progress Users Hub, right? And that's going to be the website where we have all the documentation, change requests, governance model, anything you want to know is going to be through there. First step on that is having a Google group. The request went in yesterday, so it doesn't actually exist yet, but it is going to be that SDP service users at UMA.edu. If you want more details on that, you can email Mike. Documentation, as I mentioned, what we're envisioning there is documentation in many forms, both within the database itself using like database table comments and column comments, online, and I have ideas for maybe even better options, but let's actually write those first before I start selling them too hard. Governance model. OIT might, with the service, have a service owner who really kind of directs the roadmap and the vision for that service. What we're looking at might, I said might, it varies by service. What we're looking at more is having a governance group of our users, which I think is more similar to what A+ does.
Functionality working group.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we're going to be building up our roadmap for the sorts of tools we want to add to this over time. And there's more. There's some technical things that I think are going to be really interesting in terms of integrating with this data, but I want to talk about those more once they actually exist. So, I think I have a little bit of time for questions.
Good work.
Thank you.
53 slides. That's amazing.
I will say I wanted to have more slides, but I got too lazy and I couldn't search for more images.
Other questions? Online? So can you go, I was taking some notes and everything.
Sure.
Can you talk just again real quickly about the current answer to the how do I get access now and in the future
Sure.
question?
So, access, wrong computer. Let's talk about the three different users. Access to this, you could have, this exists now. It just is shibauth and locked to a single student, right? So the JSON endpoint, sdp.uma.edu, you could go to it, and it's going to ask you for shib, and then it could show you your own data, assuming you're in the data platform, but no one else's. If you want access beyond that, then that would probably be, I think we need to establish an ARF for that, but right now it's probably an email to us.
Okay.
The second one, this actually already goes through an ARF process. If you want access to the data platform, they know to send it to my group, and we can grant select access on that schema. So if you were to email and say, I want access to IT-hosted databases, and say, I'm looking for ASR, student degree progress data, then those things usually get routed to me.
Is it in their list of stuff, or do you have to enter it in?
I've just said in the notes, so if you say like the IT-hosted databases, hotel, prod, and then asks what sort of data you're looking for is like an open text field.
Yeah.
And you can just say ASR, student degree progress data.
You say you have to know that it's
Yeah, we're working with,
That it exists to be
yeah.
able to ask.
So what we're doing is we're working with Phoebe to get ourselves integrated with both OneHelp and Knowledge Base and the ARF process. So we're following really here Bernie's vision of decentralized but yet enterprise level services, right? And part of that is integrating ourselves with OneHelp to get that support and a knowledge base article, and also for us to establish SLAs and processes and things around that. And so a lot of that is going to be coming up in the near future. Hey.
So you are enterprise level user going to do with campus with this service?
Right now it's Twin Cities only. So all of this relies on the campus choosing to format their A passes in a particular way. And so far the Twin Cities is the only campus that does that. Crookston is in a beta program right now where they are experimenting with it, and I can see them rolling it out in the near future. And at that point we can bring Crookston on board. Then we have to make the case to the other campuses that this is valuable for them to do. So Twin Cities, Rochester, covered, probably Crookston next. And I will mention real quickly, if you've heard about the DARS or APAS system going through an upgrade, our plan for that and the way we're trying to model this is we are already sitting on top of that complexity and abstracting it away for you. So if DARS gets replaced with UAchieve, we just change how we're translating things. But our layer stays the same, right? We don't want you to have to deal with that grossness. And that's, I mean, my understanding of that roadmap is that a contract kind of has to be signed by January if it's going to happen, and then we're like 2 years after that. We'll see. So even if that does happen, it's years out. So that's where that's going to be.
Ian, are you connected in with the data owners for approving access to this?
So specifically for the one I mentioned, ARF, we've kind of worked with Christine as usually the one who's been routing stuff to me to do approvals for granting access.
From TAR?
Yeah.
Yeah, but on the student data side,
Sue Van Boris, who does.
within Sue's organization, who's
Oh.
approving the access to the private data?
The data owner.
The data,
Yeah.
the data owner.
I don't know.
Stacy?
I would assume it's Stacy.
Yeah.
Typically.
I would assume it was, yeah.
Or it should be. I guess that's
Okay.
the point is, probably want to connect in with Stacy so
Sure.
that your team isn't at risk or liable for
Totally makes
doing
sense.
that approval.
Yeah, so far for that sort of single user student stuff, it's been entirely with NASR, and we haven't really had to talk about external customers, but that is a process that we'll have to finalize and make sure that we're doing correctly. Thanks.
Ian, would you mind sending a really small message out to the IDEAA group just with some of the contact information
Sure.
about this service and,
No
and
problem.
some of this stuff?
Mhm.
That would be really helpful. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's super awesome.